So super excited for you guys to give us some time today. So just a way of introducing myself. So my name is Sam Pena. I'm one of the co-founders for SENY. And today we have I have the privilege of being a moderator for two special guests that we have in this webinar, which is Peter and Leah. I'm going to let them introduce themselves a little bit later as I kind of go through some of the logistics, but I just want to just really quickly just say thank you to both of you, and then we'll kind of jump in and I'll let you guys introduce it in a few minutes. I do want to start off really quickly before we kind of dive into the webinar, just to give everyone a little bit about who we are and kind of, what is the goal here that we're trying to do. So just to kind of start off with, really today's goal is, as we're going through this interesting time and period in the world with the pandemic that's going on, myself as an SE leader and Peter and Leah, which is joining me, there's no manual to what we're going through. There isn't a kind of a playbook that we can kind of go read about or look for and how we kind of navigate all this. And someone like myself that many of you know, I'm a first-time leader, looking for guidance and advice and just ways of how we can, as leaders in our own respective organization, really kind of navigate through this interesting time as SEs. And so with that, I just want to really quickly introduce kind of SENY and do a couple of quick announcements, and then I'll turn it over to Peter and Leah to make sure that they introduce themselves. So just really quickly, I do want to call out, SENY isn't made possible without the collective effort of the team that's been formed. Everything from our founder, which was Aksha, to Owen, to G, to Eric, and to John Paul. We kind of founded this, I think over 2 years ago, where there was really no way for a lot of us that are SEs today to really kind of come together and learn from each other. I think I'll give you a little personal advice for experience from my perspective. I never studied SE. I never even heard about NC. I was kind of tapped in the shoulder and I heard about this like black magic role that existed in these vendor companies. And I was, kind of instantly hooked in as I transitioned in there. I think now SEs in general has become less of a voodoo or black box. And it's actually a role where I think many people, as they learn more about it, wants to as either join into the community and they just don't know where to start, or they're just looking for ways of making introductions so they can learn more about it. So with that, I also want to just make sure that we do introduce, I know Leah mentioned like, oh, we have SE Boston. So I do want to just really quickly give out a brand new shout out. We have a brand new chapter that just formed, SE Toronto. It was co-founded by Matt, Joshua, and Jacob. We're really excited. We've been kind of working on this for probably about a month or so. They kind of tapped us. They were really passionate about the same mission that we're trying to create in terms of New York. They want to jump in after the Boston jumped in. So now they're kind of our co-founders in terms of the Toronto chapter. So really excited to see what they're going to create in the Toronto market and how we start to build out the community there. So congrats, guys. We can't wait to see what gets out of here.
Hey, Sammy, can I ask you a quick question just before? What goes in, just for people that have joined and also just for myself being in Philly, what is required to start a new chapter?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So there's a couple of things that we look for in terms of like starting a new chapter. One is commitment, right? Like, you guys seen the prep work that we've done, the kind of getting the sponsorship and everything, like having that recurring commitment is something that's really important for us. The second part is working in terms of kind of like, what is the strategy for the year? So, one thing that we are dramatically shifting towards is doing these virtual events. And so making sure that they have clear line of sight of like, hey, like what are those events going to do? And what's the cadence of it as well? Because one thing that we're trying to keep on is consistency. And then the third one is just really passionate about the SC community in general, right? Like part of it is just being able to want to give back to the community.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Awesome. Great question. So before I kind of turn it over to Peter and Leah so they can introduce themselves, and they're way better doing it than me, I do just want to give everyone kind of a quick just a carrot of like why also to be here. Besides, of course, hearing from both Peter and Leah and all the great wisdom that we're about to get from them. But we also do have a raffle. I do want to call out CloudShare for providing that for us. But there are 3 winners that we're going to select during this webinar. So I'll kind of give you really quickly how you can possibly win. So the first one, and this is really going to be moderated by both Peter and Leah, is really around the best question asked by a member. There'll be certain points where I'll be kind of going through the Slack group and seeing what type of questions are out there, and I'll kind of push it up as it's relevant during the conversation. And at the end, I'll kind of ask you guys like, hey, what question like kind of stood out more? And then we can kind of pick the winner based off of that. The other one is all around engagement. So everyone, hopefully you guys are seeing real clearly that there's a Slack channel and there's a Slack community that we've kind of created. As we're going through a lot of our dialogue, we're going to be monitoring like engagement during it, opinions, facts, just anecdotes, just to make sure that this isn't just a community of just us 3 sharing, but there's more dialogue going on. And then the last one, this is going to be run by Aksha, which is really around randomly selected someone that's currently in the webinar, and he has this really fancy webinar generator that will randomly select someone and will be the winner for the 3rd and final one. We will announce it all at the very end, so just kind of be on the lookout. If you're not here when we call your name, you will probably not get the AirPod. Now we'll confirm that with Aksha to make sure that that's still the case. Perfect. So before I turn it over, I do just want to give another special call out. CloudShare, we couldn't have made this happen without their sponsorship. They're the ones that's hosting the webinar. I just want to kind of give you guys a call out to make sure that we really appreciate it. Part of making this happen is through these vendors that help sponsor some of these events to make sure that we can give a high quality webinar event. They had an interesting question that I wanted to just kind of post out to everyone that's currently listening to the webinar. It is an interesting time. We're all distributed. I know we're going to talk about this during our session today, but one of the questions that they asked me that I want to just kind of ask everyone, and I'll kind of pick you guys, Peter and Leah, real quickly, is like what have been some of the biggest challenges running demos and POCs during this time? Like what's been kind of like what's been blocking in terms of doing some of these demos today? Any just like quick anecdotes that you guys seen during this COVID-19?
Go ahead, Leah.
So I think, it's interesting because within Docusign, and I think many of us in pre-sales are so used to using technologies like Zoom. And as we've kind of shifted from, using it in our day-to-day to like only having it as the option, one of the challenges we've had is that our customers and our prospects are not quite as versed as we are in using this technology. So that's been probably one of the biggest things, is just like we're kind of now almost like mentally baking into meetings with certain, especially, and there's certain industries, I think more so than others, that, hey, we're going to have a little bit of time up front just to make sure we're getting everyone on. And we're actually even doing things like opening up meetings early, sending out instructions, things that we never even thought of doing before, just to make sure that we can maximize the time we have with our customers. So that's one that jumps to mind.
How about yourself, Peter? Anything to add?
Yeah, I think getting customers to stay focused is a challenge. If you're in a conference room and you're getting folks to pay attention because you're all present, it has a certain binary effect. But when your customers are also working from home and they have kids and family members, and they may have Slack open or WhatsApp open and email is open, it gets easy to get distracted and get pulled into other binary functions. So just having customers focus on the effectiveness of the demo, I think is something that needs to be taken into consideration. And also there is such a thing as Zoom fatigue. When you're on Zoom 8-10 hours a day and you're doing demos and meetings and one-on-ones, there is a certain amount of fatigue that happens when you're staring at a screen for that long. So just like, as a vendor or as a seller, you're doing it, but as a customer, I think trying to keep them focused is going to be a challenge going forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, especially if you have your camera on all the time, so you're just constantly need to engage to this like digital screen, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm like staring at you both, and I'm trying to like,
Yeah.
hopefully
Yeah.
you guys can experience a little bit of the movements.
Yeah, well, it's a great point. We've talked about that as well. It's like we all have done like this, you know, especially enterprise pre-sales. It's a work, you know, it's a remote distributed work from home role. But, you know, having your video cam on all day is something like one of the big things that we've noticed. Like we would do a lot of remote meetings, and of course it's best practice to have your video cam on, but people didn't always do it, and now they are doing it, and the engagement is much higher. But like I haven't heard it phrased like Zoom fatigue, but that is exactly like the feedback I'm getting. It's just more exhausting to be on these meetings all day, especially when you have your video on, which I think the good news is it can drive engagement, but there is that fatigue on the other side of it.
Yeah. So I just want to, oh, go ahead, Peter.
Don't underestimate the whiteboard in a demo or in a presentation.
That's a great call out. Yeah.
The whiteboard, you know, we're all technologists and we all love the new shiny thing, but a marker and a whiteboard is a powerful vehicle when you are trying to articulate a vision or a roadmap. And the demo being the backdrop, it just takes away a lot from not having a whiteboard, not having that ability to stand up and demonstrate something, even if it's with a marker and a whiteboard. I'm experiencing that. I'm Italian, so I talk with my hands anyway. Now you take away the whiteboard, I'm completely screwed.
Oh man, I have yet to see a demo where I have an essay just say, you know what, guys, I'm just gonna stand up real quick, grab the camera, go to a whiteboard, and just start just writing things out. I'll be curious to see who.
I've played tic-tac-toe on Zoom, so it is possible to engage a whiteboard with somebody that's on the other side of the screen.
That's awesome. So just real quick, and then I mean, you guys are already like jumping right into some great best practices. I want to just give you the space to introduce yourselves because I think that would just drive a lot more of what you guys are saying. But real quick, just if those of you that never heard of CloudShare, they're specifically a virtual lab solution designed specifically to help software companies deliver complex demos. Just 3 value props that I want to quickly just call out for the CloudShare company. They can easily replicate real-world solution, fully visible and control, and then real-time engagement. That's like the 3 value props that they're able. So if you're facing this challenge, definitely reach out. They're great partners of ours. So with that, I just want to, like, I just want to say I'm super excited about this. I'll kind of repeat what I said earlier. Like, I'm kind of a very new VP of Solution Architect for North America. Like, I'm only 4 months into the job, 5 months into the job. I have so much to learn in this new role. And, you know, when we had our prep meeting a couple of weeks ago, you know, you guys kind of gave me a little bit of insight of how big and how long you guys been doing this. So I want to give you guys the stage to make sure that you kind of let everyone else know kind of your background and how long you've been running VP, because, you know, hopefully they can appreciate why I'm so excited as well. So I'll kind of go in order of kind of where the slide is. So Peter, if you may.
Sure. So I'm Peter Polizzi. I'm the Vice President of Global Sales Engineering at Splunk. I've been doing this a long time. I think probably 20 years now. I'm biased in my opinion. I think the SEs are probably the most important function within a technical organization. But this is a new one. I think you said it earlier. Nobody has a playbook for a global pandemic. So I'm pretty excited to be here and to share my time with you guys.
And real quick, before we pass it on to Leah, how big of an organization, Peter, do you run today?
It's big. It's we're close to 900 people in the SE organization,
Wow.
and it's a global footprint. So yeah, it's a pretty big organization, and we continue to grow and execute well. We could be 1,300 in the next 2 to 3 years.
And just real quick, any job openings possibly in the foreseeable future? Just gotta ask.
We are always looking for talent. There is never a closed door for talent.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Leah?
Yeah, hi, I'm Leah McTiernan, VP of Solution Engineering at Docusign. I've been in pre-sales in both IC and leadership roles for almost 15 years. I started on the delivery side, and then I first moved into pre-sales at a company called Taurus that was acquired by IBM. And I had shared earlier with Sam and Peter, while I was at IBM, I had the chance to move into technical sales leadership And I felt very lucky that that was my first move into management at a company like IBM, because there was just this incredible amount of training and enablement to help cultivate a new young leader like myself. So I really do look back on that and feel like I was very fortunate. And then about 6 years ago, I moved to Docusign. And when I came into Docusign, I was one of, director level, fairly small team, amazing team of people. And the company's growth has just been incredible. So I believe, kind of my ascent to, moving up to the VP role was definitely a lot of good old fashioned, like good luck, like where preparation meets opportunity. And there was some timing in there, but that helped me move into the VP position about 3 years ago at Docusign.
And same question for you, Leah. How big is your organization today?
Yeah. So my team in North America is 120. That's the direct team, and then I have dotted line global responsibility. So if you include global, it's about 175.
Wow. And same question again. Any possibility in the future for some job opening coming in DocuSign?
Yeah, we actually we have yes, and we have headcount open now, and anyone can feel free to contact me directly on LinkedIn. I think I actually just I shared a more recent one yesterday or the day before. So yes, absolutely.
Awesome. And so just so you guys can know the scale of what they're managing versus me, North America for Pluralsight is only about 34 SEs and leaders. So clearly I have a lot to learn from you two, especially with how big of an organization you guys are running. So we're going to dive in. I want to set the stage though, like just so that we can remove the screen, get more comfortable. I have my drinks here, my water, etc. But I just want to give you kind of like what are we going to talk about? So like, forget the webinar, forget that there's 70 plus people. We're all in Midtown Manhattan right now. We are at a Starbucks. I hit you guys up at LinkedIn and or texted you or call you and I said, hey, I'm freaking dealing with this pandemic. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm a first-time VP at a company called Pluralsight. I'm looking for mentorship, guidance, anything that you guys have that can help me just be a little bit more successful in this role. So we're really going to focus on just 4 areas. One is around distributed workforce. I think this is the first time in the world that we've had this like social experiment of like everyone's just working from home, right? At least in the SC community that I've spoken to. So it's just interesting to see like how that's adopting the culture. I think, for me personally and what I've seen in my org, this culture is changing a little bit. And then also like what could be the future of pre-sales and the way we engage with our customers or with our own org post the COVID-19. And then just for fun measure, just to get to know us better, I did sprinkle in a lightning round. It's just a series of questions, 1 or 2 word answer. I know you guys haven't seen those questions yet. I'm really excited about that one in particular. I know Peter is too. But yeah, hopefully, again, just want to set the stage before I kind of throw this over and we can kind of get started with this. So I'm going to just stop sharing because enough is enough. Like, let's just kind of get right into it. So I guess one of my very first questions that I had, and we can kind of start being a little bit more informal, is, like my organization pre-COVID-19, like we had kind of a field motion and a hub motion. And during those 2 motions, the hub motion was really, in the office. There was a group of SAs that just kind of worked with the AEs within the office. And we had a couple that were remote, but now all of that's changed. Like I've had 100% remote employees across the entire country. And I know in EMEA and Asia Pac is also dealing with the same thing. Like, how's that transition going for you guys? Like how's your SC organization dealing with the fact that now everyone's 100% remote?
Go ahead, Leah.
Want me to go? Sure. So, we have a similar model at Docusign where, I think we have, a commercial business unit that traditionally had gone into the office every day, enterprise business unit that, had, traditionally worked from home. So there's definitely a large percentage of the team that was very comfortable and used to working from home, but just not in this broader circumstance. And I think it's really just it's been different for each person. Everyone has their own set of challenges with this new normal. And it's really a broad range of spectrum from like, hey, I have kids at home. I'm like now living with my parents. I have sick parents I'm trying to take care of. Loneliness has been one that's come up quite a bit. So it's not a one size fits all for how you manage through that. And that's something like I've been trying to talk about with my leaders a lot as well. And it's been interesting. I mean, obviously there's been many more touch points, and you know, we get the full range of emotions too, from like, hey, this isn't that bad. And to be honest, I kind of like it because I finally, especially for people who've traveled their whole lives, to people who just are really, really struggling and kind of have the hour by hour mentality. So broad range of emotions and situations. I will say that I feel like this week in particular, for some reason, and just some touch points I've had with the team, people seem to be like, now they have the muscle memory, they have the routine, you know, they're more comfortable in how they're operating. And I just started thinking like, wow, it's going to be another whole, however we move out of this, and, you know, of course, ultimately that will be a whole nother set of challenges to move through. But I think overall, it's just, we've been trying to, you know, realize it's not a one size fits all for how we're handling it.
I think from our perspective, it's been difficult. I think the team has stepped up to the challenge. Selling virtually is difficult, especially when the technology is a tech set that requires you to be present, that requires whiteboarding, that requires iteration. It's very difficult to do that over Zoom, especially when you have the distraction behind you of families, doorbells ringing, dogs barking. You know, we're all kind of stuck at home. And second, there is a certain amount of fatigue that comes with this, because as an SE, you're in the pressure cooker all day long. You're on Zoom sessions all day long. When you travel, you have the ability to go for drinks and go for dinner and get a break and go back to your hotel and check email. But when you're in front of the screen, you're on stage all day long. And I think that is taking a toll out on the organization. But we are starting to see some new opportunities to really redefine the selling motion of a sales engineer post-COVID. Not everybody needs to be on a plane. So we're taking a look at deals of a certain size that in the past, we would just jump on a plane and go visit a customer. Now we're considering some small market deals to be sold remote versus having an SE get on a plane. We are taking a look at enablement in a way that is now a lot more efficient than being in a classroom. We are looking at how we collaborate with our partners in a way that's a bit more efficient than it was in the past. So I will never say that some good came out of COVID, because I don't think anything did, but it is forcing us to reconsider our go-to-market motion, especially our technical go-to-market motion, in ways that I think in the past we never really took a look at. But now that that luxury is gone, I think the team is doing a great job collapsing around this and coming up with some new selling techniques that have been really efficient.
What about in terms of like morale? Like how are you guys like trying to keep everyone, I don't want to say focused because everyone's focused to their job, but just kind of keeping an upbeat while still being kind of 100% remote?
You want to take that, Leah? You want me to go?
Yeah, well, I mean, the meeting I was just on before this, everyone was dressed up in Star Trek costumes. So it was like, so there's a lot of like, which I haven't seen that one yet. There was another one I joined earlier that everyone had a pink wig on. So, I mean, I think like leaders are, and they know their teams, right? Like, you know, there's some teams with the Star Trek, they would not, you know, go over it all, but there's others that like love that. There's the kind of the Seinfeld office, Parks and Rec crew. Yeah, so it's just, I've seen like myself and the leaders just, they're trying to have fun with it. I think to Peter's point, everyone underestimated how exhausting like our role could become. And I hadn't even thought about it that way, but it's a great, like we are on all day long. And, you know, when you do travel, you could have a huge meeting to secure $1 million deal and you're on for 3 hours. And then you get, you know, to unwind and relax and you get all of that. So, you know, I've seen a lot of, so we've done a lot of crazy things here, some competitions, scavenger hunts. There's a great app called Goose Chase where you actually build a virtual scavenger hunt and you have a team DocuSign actually did this with Salesforce, and you have to run around your house and just do all these crazy things, but it was a blast. And it was actually in the context of really like a customer meeting, but they wanted, someone threw out the idea to do it together. So there's just been a lot of creative, fun, different things, that I think has really helped to boost morale.
Yeah, I agree. Splunk's been a fun culture before COVID, but the virtual happy hour wasn't something we ever employed before. Now I can have a drink with my team, no matter where they are in the world, via Zoom. We play tic-tac-toe via Zoom. I'm able to, all the time I am getting back from not being on plane, trains, and automobiles, I've opened that up to my entire organization. So I think there's individual contributors that now have access to me that in the past maybe they didn't, because I was in customer meetings or on planes or on trains. And that's been an adjustment that I've made. I have really reprioritized my schedule to allow for open time on an open Zoom channel to allow any SE in the world to get on and decompress. And people are afraid because economies are being impacted, family members are being impacted. I think there's a certain amount of stress that comes being stuck at home for 40, 45 days, 50 days, depends on where you are in the world. And, sometimes you just need to listen. And I think, I haven't used Zoom as much as I have lately, but you can pop into my Zoom channel at any time. It's an open mic for 14 hours a day where you have to
only 14, Peter? Really? Only 14?
Yeah. I learned that, every identity within the SE organization has a different filter. If you're an individual contributor, you may be looking at the world a certain way. If you're a frontline manager, a director, a senior director, a VP, and making time for folks to just unload, I think it's important because that de-stresses the situation. And plus we have fun. That's kind of the culture that we had. And I think you get punch drunk after a certain amount of time on Zoom, where the latter calls in the day get a little bit more punchy than the earlier calls, but you're starting to manage. We are splunking trends on attitudes during the day where I know when to schedule meetings with what team member based on how they react as the day gets long. But yeah, it's been fun. You get to see the human side of folks because you are forced to interact on Zoom. You are forced to listen to each other. You can't get distracted. And if you do, somebody's going to call you out on it. But I think we've been able to really pivot is the word I'm going to use. I think the organization has pivoted in ways that I never expected because you never planned for something like this.
Do you guys, I don't know, I don't want to say mandate because that's such a like a strict word, but do you guys encourage for videos to always be on in Zoom, or is that just, or maybe more importantly, like has people just naturally turn on their videos?
I force it.
So I mandate it.
Okay, all right, that's a good best practice for me. That clearly.
I mean,
if I own the meeting, I mandate. Like if I'm not the host of the meeting, I don't. But I feel like once you put your video on, people usually do too.
Okay.
Yeah, and also we've all accepted now, the backgrounds. We've all accepted, hey, this is my office. My son will come in here and print something. Customers accept it, partners accept it, executives accept it. It's a new normal. And in fact, I've gotten to meet my team members' families because of this, because you kind of see them pop in and out of videos. But I think it's important that you look at each other during these times. I think it's important that there's a human connection. I think people will remember who showed up during this time and who was present versus who wasn't. And I think this is an important message for everyone out there. It's easy to be a good partner when times are good. It's hard to be a good partner when times are bad. And these are bad times for some folks, even if it's just from the ability to earn. There's companies out there that are being impacted. You've heard about furloughs and layoffs and recalibration of compensation, and people are nervous. So having that ability to connect eye to eye with folks is important. So I mandate the video to go on.
Awesome. That's good.
Hey,
That's
Sam,
good best practice.
Sam,
Yeah.
this is Akshat. We have a lot of questions. The engagement is great. I just want to pick some at this point for this section, if that's okay.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so one of the questions is, what are you doing to keep your employees engaged and motivated? I think we already hit that.
Yep.
The other question that received a lot of likes is, what is something birthed from this remote world that you will keep going once we go back to normal?
I'm
what is
keeping my
something
happy
that?
hour.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's an easy one. Something that new. Well, you know, I started to do a lot more like reach outs and one-on-ones with the broader org, and it's been invaluable. So I feel like that's one thing I'll definitely keep. I was doing it already, but I'm doing it at a bigger scale now, and it's been awesome.
Got it. There's another question, and a lot of people are actually worried about the climate in terms of the jobs. So there was one question around sorry, are your SEs concerned about losing their jobs in this environment? Is there a cloud hanging over people in their minds? How do you handle these concerns?
Mm-hmm.
I'll take that first if you don't mind, Leah.
Sure, go for it.
So I think the answer is yes. I think it's not just the SEs. I think anybody that turns the news on is worried. We have a third of the US economy shut down right now. They're talking about new waves of infections. Markets don't react well in the US. We're in an election year that provides volatility. If you're a global SE, you know that Europe in the summer is a difficult market to navigate in. So yeah, there's concerns. I think the best thing you can do is just be transparent. I think you need to communicate often and at many different levels within the organization. I have one of the best in the business. I have one of the best change management people in the business that helps me communicate across all levels within my organization. I think you guys will have Teresa McLean on in the future, but she's been extremely effective on allowing us to touch as many levels within the organization as possible. So communicating is extremely important. Being transparent is extremely important. I think we owe it to our teams to provide as much information as possible so they can make decisions for themselves and their families. And I also think being consistent and being visible allows people to constantly focus on a lighthouse or on a point of reference to get a temperature of what's happening within the company. And I think as a leader at Splunk and my leadership team at Splunk, we put the safety of our employees first, second, and third within how we operate. And that's not just health related, that's also financial safety. So yeah, it is unsettling. It's unsettling right now. I've been through something like this. I've been through a bunch of these. I've been through 9/11. I've been through the financial crisis in 2008, 2009. I've been through Hurricane Sandy. We've had a few tsunamis in between. This is something that is never new and it never gets old. But yeah, you have to recognize that there's fear in the system because of what you turn on the news and it makes it sound like the world's coming to an end. I refuse to turn the news on. But at the same time, there are business principles that you can share openly and allow folks to make their own decisions. But yeah, there's fear in the system. There absolutely is a cloud over what we do because you're also seeing customers being impacted. So imagine selling into Sam. Sam's my customer. Sam's in the middle of a sales cycle. Sam loses his job. You know, so that affects you as a vendor when you're seeing your customers being impacted. So yeah, that absolutely does exist.
Perfect. So I'll pose the next question to Leah then, Peter, since we have a couple more. We have this question with 16 likes. That's how we're making sure which question to ask. So can you speak a little about your journey from being a sales engineer to being SE leader? Lessons you learned along the way.
Holy cow. That's a long one. Leah, you go first.
Well, I hit on it a little. Yeah. I mean, I hit on it a little bit in the intro. I mean, I never see, and Sammy kind of hit on it in his too. Like, you know, this is such an unknown career path. And I honestly think it is one of the best career paths. I wish someone, when I was in business school, I wish someone had kind of flashed this in front of me because I was a business major and a computer science minor. And then when I realized in my first job where I was writing code, and I was writing, trying to develop software and, it was like, 1,200 lines of code for me. And I kind of look at my peer and he's like, I did this in about 50. I'm like, all right, like, this may not be the long-term career for me, but I love technology. I love people. I actually moved into a services role. So I was on the implementation, the delivery side for some time. And it physically took a really strong sales leader to be like, you love presenting, you connect, you love technology, well, you should do sales. And my mind immediately went to like a rep. And, I wasn't interested. And, little did I know, like, soon he shared with me, no, I'm not talking about sales, I'm talking about pre-sales. Which has so many different names and connotations. That's another story. But as soon as I understood then what the role was, I was all in. And it's just, I love what you guys are doing with like SE New York, and because it's bringing awareness and it's elevating the role. So after being in delivery on the implementation consulting side for some time, that's when I moved into pre-sales. And then while I was at IBM, I moved up into a management role, and it was, really my opportunity was my current boss, had got tapped on the shoulder to take a bigger role. For all the women out there, it was me against two guys, and it was very competitive. Interestingly, I got the role, and I kept asking my boss at the time, like, how did I get that manager role? Like in my head, very common, like I didn't think I was the most qualified. And I was looking at it from a sheer like technical aptitude perspective. And he's like, and his feedback to me was just because, you're someone I want to pick up the phone and solve problems with, and the other two candidates weren't. So it was, that was, he's like, you're who I want to be interacting with every day. And that was a little bit of a lesson in just relationship is so important no matter what role you're in. And then I was in the manager role for a couple of years at IBM, and then I moved over to Docusign. And like I said at the beginning, just kind of, very, opportunity. It was, getting into a company at the right time with an amazing team, amazing sales leadership. And, I just tried to keep my head down and do everything right, and the opportunity presented itself. That was my short answer. Peter, I would love to hear Peter's story, to be honest, if we can have him answer that question.
There's a lot.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you how I first got into it, and then I'll give you the quick version of it. And I'm sure there's some people from Splunk on the call, and they've heard about this 20 times. So I'll give them the 21st time. But so I was a consulting sales engineer. A consulting sales engineer was someone who specialized in a technology set and a vertical, and applied those together and provided business outcomes that were specific to the industry. And I was working a very large opportunity. In fact, for the company that I was working for, it was the largest at the time for a large life sciences company in Pennsylvania. Leah, I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of pharmaceutical companies in your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
So I remember being in the lobby to do the final pitch for this large deal. It was a $54 million deal, and I'm going back now to year 2001. That was, for you youngins on the phone, that was a lot of money back then. Mm-hmm. And as I walked in, I saw my CEO and my CFO there, and I didn't see my boss there, who was supposed to present or do the pitch. I was just technical support for the deal, and my boss at the time, who was a vice president, he was going to give the pitch. And my CEO came to me. It was a Monday morning. It was 8:15. I'll never forget this. And CEO came to me, who was a very known name at the time, kind of like a Bill Gates, a Larry Ellison. He was part of that category. And he said to me, hey, I need you to give the pitch because your boss was let go yesterday, which was Sunday. So I am literally 15 minutes out from walking in. I was literally giving the receptionist my ID to get your little, sticker name on your lapel so you could walk in through security. And they said, you need to give the pitch. Now, luckily, I had spent a lot of time putting the presentation together. So as I was walking into the conference room, where there was no less than 20 people from the customer, there was every representation from legal to finance to the business owners to the IT team, security team, network team. My CFO pulled me by the arm before I walked in, and he said, hey, I know you're nervous. he said, listen to these words. He says, there's nobody in that room that knows more about what we do than you. And I was like, you know what? He's right. So I went in and I gave the pitch. We ended up winning that deal, not because of that pitch, but it was a significant milestone. And then my CEO called me and he said, hey, I loved what you did. I want you to do this with the entire consulting SE organization. So I kind of got pushed into that leadership role. And then over time, being on the selling side, I mean, we're all SEs. And you know, there's an interesting conundrum on being an SE. If you take a look at the word SE or the title, the S part means sales. We're not salespeople. So we always have a chip on our shoulder that we're not salespeople. We're not treated the same way as salespeople. We don't go to club like salespeople, and we don't get paid by salespeople. So you got that chip. And then the E side, the engineering side, we're all engineers, but we don't make product. So we always have a chip on our shoulder that we're not salespeople and we're not engineers. So we're always a little messed up in the head when it comes to that. But as a seller, then I started looking at other areas of the business that impacted me. And I call these pivots. And pivots, for those of you that know basketball, is when you anchor one foot down and you rotate with the other foot. So I started in consulting, sales, engineering, and managing that. Then I went into application development. I went into support. I went into PS. I went into customer success. I went into cloud ops. So I pivoted around the entire customer journey, the technical life cycle. So it allowed me to be a better leader because now I knew how products were made, how roadmaps were developed, how they were launched, how the SE sold them, how they were implemented, how they were adopted, how they were operated, and how they were supported. And that just allowed me to kind of pivot around the organization. And then as you grow within an organization, I think these attributes are important because it allows you to bring a dimension to your job that's a lot different than just being a seller. It allows you to really look at the end-to-end customer lifecycle. And more importantly, when you're landing some of these big deals, customers want to know the journey that they're being brought on. And by being that central point of experience, I think it's important. So, you know, similar to you, Leah, I got kind of pushed into this by mistake. I always wanted to lead people. And had this not happened, I think I would have eventually led people, but I think I got thrown into the deep end of the pool without knowing it, and I never looked back from that point on. So it was a good day, not for my boss who got let go, but it was a good day for me, and that's been sort of the beginning of what got me here today.
That's great. I actually have a quick follow-up question because these are conversations I'm having a lot now, where I feel like with SEs. Who are getting into the role younger, and then they're saying, you know what, I'm going to do this role. This is like literally a conversation. I'm going to do this role for 3 years. Then I'm going to move into product management, and then I'm going to move into this role. And then in 10 years, I'd like to be a CEO. So on like one hand, I'm like, damn, that's awesome. Like they're realizing the importance of having the exposure across multiple facets of a business, but it's so premeditated and so like, you know, planned out. That, you know, it's a challenge sometimes to guide and mentor. And so when you were just saying that, I was curious, you have the exposure across all these different parts of the business. And I agree, like, I do think that makes you such a more valuable leader because you can bring so much more. But was that like conscious on your part to do that? Or was that just, okay. So that's interesting. It
was.
Okay.
It was. I was.
Got it.
Some may look at it as risky, but I was rolling my dice in every engagement because it was by design. I knew I could always fall back on being an SE if I needed to.
Yeah.
That was my anchor point. But, you know, when you're sitting across the table from a professional services executive and they're talking about, hey, your SEs are not selling it right, and if you don't sell it right, we can't implement it right. It's easy to say, you know what, why don't I do both? And I'll sell it right and I'll implement it right. So you sort of start pivoting around the organization. Same thing with support. On the support side, you guys know this, that it takes a unique individual to be in support because you wake up every day knowing that your job consists of people not being happy with your product. So if it's being sold right and if it's being implemented right, it gets supported right. So it all kind of connects, but it was by design that I was pivoting in and out of these roles. I will tell you all, the SE side pays a lot better than the other sides. So if you're interested in money, stick with the sales side. But it's great to be able to stand in front of a large multinational and take them on a journey from this is how this continuous loop of improvement starts. And, we have a great mechanism and partnership at Splunk where the SEs have a seat at the table when it comes to roadmap. We have a seat at the table to identify how we win and why we win, and let's double down on that versus where we lose and how do we fill those gaps. So having that broad experience of, hey, I know how roadmaps are developed and funded and products are made, allows me to bring credibility to those discussions as a representative for my 900-person organization, so I can continuously remove obstacles from my team by building better products to allow us to win more. Because there's no bigger waste in an SE's day is working a deal for 3 months and losing it because you didn't have a technical feature or you guys all know this. So my job is to make sure that I spend all of my time compressing that gap in productivity to allow my team to really land and take off planes freely and make as much money as they can during the year. And it allows us as Splunk to grow and continue to gain market share. So yeah, I thought it was a good opportunity to redesign my career, and it's been yielding results since. I've been really fortunate.
Wow, that's awesome.
Really interesting.
So just changing gears real quick in terms of, earlier you guys mentioned about the fact that we were just constantly in Zoom after Zoom after Zoom. And then there's like this new distraction now of like Slack, right? And we're now connected always. That's like the broad thing. And Peter, you mentioned earlier the fact that, when you get on a plane and you were able to like get to this big meeting, there was some time to decompress. What I've experienced is that the culture of what is expected of the SA is changing because of the fact that we're always connected. And you brought up a good point. I think it was Peter or Leah, which was like Zoom fatigue, right? Which is like, we're always on Zoom. Now we're getting dinged by like, and I'm looking at my own like company Slack channel, and I have like 50 Slack messages being pinged. And there's this expectation that it's like now, because they know that you're always home and you're always in your home office. Like, what do you guys experience in terms of the SA culture? Like, is that something that is creating friction between the AE and the SA in terms of how they work together, and even with their customers in terms of how they're being demanded to do more? Or like, can you just speak a little bit about the culture of like what's happening with pre-sales in your work?
Yeah, I can start with that one. Yeah, yeah. I mean, so it's a great question, and I think for us, burnout has been a huge challenge because, right, in addition to your full-time job, you're now a full-time parent, teacher. You have so much that you need to do. In traditionally, the 8-hour, 9-hour workday, and it's just boundaries and time management become a real challenge. So we've been just individually trying to kind of coach and help, people who we know have more challenging situations than others around kind of how they can set those boundaries for themselves, and then how we can support those boundaries for them. From a team perspective, we use Slack as well. We use Zoom. So for all intents and purposes, I would say it's actually been a positive for the culture. It's still it is always on. I mean, there's the people that mute and they know when to mute, and they're like, I'm out, like, I don't, and that's what we tell them to do, right? Like, don't. And then there's the contingency that like just they absolutely love it. Like sometimes I wake up in the morning and look at our Slack channel. We have one global one, and I'm like always pleasantly, it's really makes me feel great when I see, wow, there was like 10, 12 challenging scenarios that came in, even if it was like APAC and North America helping. And then there's like some hilarious jokes and things and pictures and things like weaved in between, right? So it's kind of, so far, so good. In this one Slack channel I'm thinking of, there's a pretty large number of people, and for all intents and purposes, the feedback that we've been getting has been really positive. That said, we do run a survey. I usually do my own informal survey of the team every March. And we did do that survey, so the timing of it was great this year. And in that survey, there was a few comments, just, concerning comments in general. And we actually have a women in solution engineering, ERG at Docusign, a WISE team. They're phenomenal. And I shared with them some of the feedback and concerns. Again, it's all anonymous, and they had this great idea to say, hey, why don't we put out just like a super short 2-question survey? and it can be a pulse check, anonymous, but basically what they wanted to get across is that if there are people that are hurting a little more than others or feeling challenges, it's like, please let us know, and we want to have someone reach out to you. It's not a leader or manager. No one's going to know except for another teammate to help. So we actually just launched that this week, and we haven't, gotten all the feedback yet, but that was a program, I think, kind of from some of the leaders within our team, within our YZRG, like they were brainstorming, how can we help and reach out, but do it in a more personal way. So these are the things, like that was just this week, right? We were talking about it last week and did it this week. So again, like any of this, it's evolving, and we're trying to adapt and just be here to support the team the best we can and keep the culture strong.
We've seen mixed results when it comes to the engagement with our sales teams. When you had to get on a plane, train, or automobile, people were a bit more thoughtful on how they engage their technical pre-sales resource. I think you need to be guarded and guided to see if you're getting thrown into science experiments, because now it's like, hey, you're from home. Can you do this demo? Try this. Can we do this? And a lot of times I don't want to burn SE time on a science experiment, because now it's easy to do because everything's remote. And while you're at home, why don't we fill your 8-hour day with 20 demos, of which 10 may not be qualified or the customer may not be interested in, but because it's easy to do, let's just do it. So I've asked my leadership team to really pay attention to how are we spending every dollar of SE time to make sure that we're going after qualified opportunities, and we're not, because we're sitting at home, we're not throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks in new markets, new opportunities with new products. The one thing that we did gain back, though, is on average, NSE spends probably 15 to 20% of their time on the road in a normal setting. Now that they're not on the road, we're trying to fill that time with enablement. I think most companies don't focus on talent development or SE development as part of their jobs. We use that development in a very event-driven model. You buy a new company, you train everybody on the product set. You launch a new product, you train everybody on the product set. Now we're making sure that we are putting enough content out there where an SE can take half a day a week and just cycle through new use cases, vertical use cases, competitive, best practices. So we keep pumping our SEs with knowledge, and at the same time, we take them off of this Zoom screen that right now is consuming their day, and it allows them to continue to develop even though the whole world went on pause over the last month and a half. So it's still too early to tell. But yeah, I mean, we've been able to sell virtually, and 6 months ago, you would think that you had to put somebody on a plane. So that's a new normal.
Can I ask, Peter, in terms of that enablement and the fact that you're pumping it, where's the content coming from? Are you allocating SEs to kind of buy the SEs for the SEs, or is it really coming from other parts of the business?
Yeah, so if you know Splunk is a data company, and we have enough content to choke an elephant. We have restructured the way we do this. We are crowdsourcing. We have a crowdsourcing program that I announced actually today, where we are sourcing materials out of the 900 SEs, and we're gamifying it, where we're making it fun, where every quarter we'll recognize top 3 use cases, top 6 use cases, top best practices, competitive content, and that content will then get repackaged and recycled through the global SE organization. But we also have an EDU team that is providing product and technical education from new products that we're putting out. We have a technical marketing team that provides that. So we've actually hired a strategist that can help us prioritize this, because any product manager with a microphone has the ability to ram content down the SE's throat. We're doing this in a thoughtful way now, where we're throttling what comes in and out of our organization, and where we have gaps, we will source it from the SEs. But the one thing that we're going to innovate around now, this is going to take a little bit of time because of the new normal, but enablement was typically delivered 3 ways, either self-paced, over web, or in a classroom. We want to take advantage of mobile now, where we could start compartmentalizing this and putting out consumable bites, where the SE has a continuous cycle of information versus the big bang that comes and takes them off the field. And also, I think it's a good distraction to allow folks to take that, I call it that intentional airplane mode moment where you shut things off and you actually learn and develop yourself, invest in yourself versus being in front of the screen for 12 hours, 14 hours a day.
That's awesome.
Hope that answered your question.
No, that was awesome. And you know, I kind of want to ask you guys, in terms of pre-COVID-19, do you guys facilitated some sort of summit for your pre-sales organization, where, you know, you get people together, they get to kind of learn from each other, or is this something that's kind of, I'm speaking out of turn?
I can jump in first. Yeah. So yes, we did a global solution engineering summit every year. Usually it was a destination. And in addition to that, we would always have our global sales kickoff as another opportunity to bring the large extended team together. So those were really the two big events. And then I would also twice a year bring my leadership team together for a summit. So it really kind of worked out where, like, every quarter, either I was bringing my entire leadership team together or the broader organization together. And you know, to Peter's point, enablement, especially with the broader team, you know, a lot of networking and camaraderie, culture building, but also typically heavy focus on enablement. So a lot of what Peter was just saying rings very true to me as well. And one of the things we're even talking about now is, you know, how do we enable remotely on the soft skills, right? The presentation delivery, how you land your value and outcome points, you know, how we're, so just the sheer presentation, again, at Docusign, because we, you know, SMB to enterprise, we have people on the team who are 3 months into solution engineer career, and we have people who've been doing it for 20 years. So it's a broad range. It's almost like, yeah, I sometimes think we're, you know, it's like enabling a first grader all the way up to a high school senior. We got to tailor a little bit, in different parts of the org need different things, but there is a real thirst to, you know, continue to enable, and just recently, you know, starting to think about programs we could do on the software side of the house as well. Yeah, but yes, on the summits.
So
over to you.
Before we turn over to Peter, so then what are you going to do now with COVID-19 happening? Or how are you going to create this summit type of experience?
So, so for my leaders, we're still going to do, and even like I have it with my boss, right? Like he always pulled his team together for quarterly QBR, day and a half. We have a 6-hour meeting on Friday, which is like, so he basically said, we're cutting it in half. It's going to be 6 hours. And, you know, it's a lot, and this is a lot of what I've noticed too. We're you know, getting very deliberate in what the content is. And so I'm probably going to do something very similar, where I will still, for my direct leaders, hold something just shortened, you know, agenda. And then for the broader organization, we've done a couple things. Like, so we're looking at it more team by team, but not just individual teams. Part of it is like, hey, let's bring, you know, commercial business unit, financial services together with enterprise, like looking for the synergies where we can get a larger group together talking and presenting in a meaningful way. So yeah, but kind of keeping it to half day, you know, 4 to 6 hour summit. And then, you know, of course, they've got to end with a happy hour, a game, something fun. We're doing sharing. Remote yoga. We have yoga class. So yeah, there's someone on our team who's phenomenal. She's been doing yoga for like the whole company, which has been great. So yeah.
Peter, any thoughts on yours? Yep.
Yeah. So this was my first kickoff or my first sales conference with Splunk, and we were planning a tech summit. Obviously, an organization our size, it gets really expensive to bring 900 people in, and it's not just the expense of traveling them into a location. It's also, when you pull 900 SEs off the field, you kind of shut down sales for a week. So we were in the planning process of doing a hub and spoke model, where we would have key locations within certain geos where we would bring folks together, and then we would transmit and broadcast globally. I think that's going to be the standard going forward, even with COVID. Rather than bring people in, I think we will have key locations where we will have product management and specialists and some of our executive teams broadcast globally. I think that's the better way of doing it. I love the networking and the team building, but prior to COVID, there was an expense item that's significant. Post-COVID, now you can't get 900 people in a room. So I think it's going to become the new normal where we transmit and broadcast versus pulling people off the field and bringing them into a location.
Awesome. So I want to create space for Akshat. Do you have any new questions that you want to surface up to Peter and Leah?
We do, but give me. But go ahead. Do your round, and then I'll just ask them at the end.
Okay, perfect. So we're gonna switch gears one more time, and then we're gonna go right into the lightning round. I know everyone's dying to know what the heck these questions are that Sam came up with, but I think one thing that I would love to get your perspective on is clearly there's no playbook. We're in COVID-19. One thing that I'm seeing is that the fabric of the economy, society, like is completely changing. Like I have a 7-month-old daughter. I can tell you right now, I haven't been to a supermarket. I haven't been to Home Depot. I probably haven't left anywhere besides my house, and everything is being ordered in. So I know like the way of how I expect my products to be delivered is changing for me personally, and the way how I expect it. Like if you think about it from an SC perspective, like what will be the new normal in the way of what's expected for SCs and the way they deliver whatever it is that they need to deliver to the customers? Like what are your thoughts on that, on how that could change?
Go ahead, Leah.
You want me to say? Yeah. One of the things that we're seeing, and we have been seeing this, but I think it's just been accelerated like so many other things, is the use of more on-demand, real-time video assets, especially within our world. So, a lot of, buyers are coming in so much more educated. In fact, one of the challenges like we have at Docusign is a lot of our prospects and customers are, because, the brand is strong, sit down at the table with us and they're like, hey, great, here's how we're thinking about using you guys. They've already solution designed, and we have to help them take a step back, understand the broader platform, and evangelize, a much bigger value outcome solution footprint. But what we have started to see a trend, and again, it's accelerated, is, this ability, when you think of like the qualifying, meetings and discoveries, there's just this thirst to consume digital assets, whether it's, videos, reporting them to portals that we have. And a lot of this is like, some of this, we're starting to create more and more SE content. We have an SE YouTube channel. I got an email from a sales leader the other day who's like, I literally think we're closing deals much, much faster, because he's like, I am telling them to watch these 3 videos before they get on the discovery call. Then we have a much more meaningful discovery call, and we're doing maybe 1 custom demo instead of 4 or 5, and then it's driving to close. So it's accelerating some of the patterns that we were already starting to see. And what I do think that can mean for pre-sales is that you could start to see more scale, productivity built in, more higher ratios, right? If you're not getting on a plane, or you're able to, convert business with, 3 meetings instead of 6, you can take on more from a productivity perspective.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that's going to come out of this. First, I think we're going to organize our T&E, travel and entertainment spend, very differently. I don't think NSE is going to be getting on a plane for a deal below a certain threshold going forward. I think travel's still going to be there. Customers still want to see you. Some of the multinationals want to shake hands, eyeball you, spend some time with you. It's hard to do a 6-hour meeting, 5-hour meeting, 4-hour meeting on Zoom. So we're still going to travel, but we're going to really take a look at how our SEs are spending their time. Because I think one thing that I've learned in the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is that we can do things differently in the spirit of productivity, and at the same time give people back a quality of life that they didn't have in the past. I'm being one of those people. I was on the road probably 80% of the time, and now I'm still able to do my job without being on the road. So it allows me to reevaluate how I spend my time. And I think it's important for my teammates to reevaluate how they spend their time. I think security is something that will get embedded into every SE SE's DNA. When you're living in a distributed work environment, there's the ability to get exposed. Zoom wasn't secure, Slack isn't secure. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into our fabric today that require us as designers of a solution to think about, what am I designing today that's different than what I was designing a year ago? And today the difference is we're relying on the technology to collaborate, where in the past, we were going into a room and the security was your badge at the front desk. Now it's all exposed through technology. So everything that we design into our system has to have security at the forefront, because we're reliant on third-party technologies to interact, when in the past it wasn't there. And I think third, as leaders, I think understanding the fatigue factor is at the forefront for me. It's real easy to burn out in these type of scenarios. Even going forward, it's easy to ram 12 demos, 13 demos into an SE's day because it's done remotely. And you think, now I'm getting a day back of travel and I'm getting 50% back on this and 30% back on this. I think we really need to understand on, or at least I'm spending a lot of time understanding, how do we spend our SE time efficiently while at the same time looking out for their mental well-being, because it does, there is a tax that comes with the lack of human interaction, with the lack of diversity in how we spend our days. There is a lack of that, and I don't think we're going to be out of this new normal for a while. So just keeping that at the forefront, I think, is something that I've learned in the last 2 months.
All right, Sam, we have 2 questions for you guys, and then you can go to the lightning round. So are we okay?
Yep.
So one of the questions that got a lot of likes was hiring SE leadership from outside or develop from within?
I'm a develop from within.
Yeah, I do both. I think it's important to provide a career path for the folks that are within the organization, but I think bringing external talent brings a new level of best practices, thinking, philosophies, culture, and it allows you to get a good mix. I think it's easy to over-rotate one way or another, but having a balanced organization of diversity, and diversity is also, it's not just gender, it's not just geography, it's not just ethnic background, but it's also good diversity between internal growth and external candidates.
Great. And one with 13 likes, one of the top questions. If you had to choose technical or social customer-facing skills for an SE hire, what would you choose?
I need time to think about that. You could go, Leah.
Technical or solution is the question, right?
Or social.
Social. That's a tough one to answer. I'm like, social can I'm like trying to understand what social means.
What about maybe
because more? I don't understand what social means, I'll say technical. I mean, I think personality and relationship building is critical, right? So there needs to be a balance there of both.
Yeah, I'm going to side with the technical. I think the SE needs to be the smartest person in the room. Personality is great, but if you put a gun to my head, I'd rather have the smartest technical person in the room that knows everything about what we're trying to accomplish, knows everything about the customer and their problem statement, knows everything about the industry, knows everything about my competitors. And if he or she does not have a personality, I'm okay with that. Let the RSM or the account manager be the personality in the room, but I still want the SE to be the smartest person in the room.
So we have one more question I will ask, and this is because this is really related to the current topic, and it's got 8 likes. As an SE leader, if you have to make a decision to lay off someone from your team, what are the factors you will consider before making that decision?
Wow.
And
sorry, this is the tough one.
I mean, it's I mean, there's general. I mean, it's performance, right? Like I look at, like I have a pretty good understanding, you know, and I'm sure Peter, yeah, you know who your performers are, you know who aren't. I mean, I'll also add, like our hiring like I really held to looking for certain things, hiring, right? Attitude to me is everything. If you have a bad attitude, like I do not want, that in the organization. Our team, like our drumbeat is get shit done because there's work ethic, right? There has to be we have to be working hard, and then team. I've been in really bad cultures, and I'll give say IBM story, right? The team I was managing before I left, the 20, 30 different solutions, and I need an SE to go help on a meeting, and they want one meeting, 1 hour. I want in writing how much commission I'm getting on that deal if I do this. It was nuts. And culture was manufactured by the leadership there. So I think of, attitude, work ethic, and team are incredibly important. And then you couple that with performance and relationship building.
I'm with Leah. Listen, we all know who our performers are, but I would add one more attribute to that. If I have 10 great SEs in New York Metro and I only have one SE in Connecticut, and that SE in Connecticut may not be top of the food chain when it comes to performance, but it's my only SE in Connecticut with coverage of that geo, I'm going to have to pull out of New York Metro. So there's a few things that come into play here. I tend to take the road of, hey, nobody gets left behind. So we're trying to ensure that we continue this journey with the same folks that we started it. But if it really came down to it, there's a tremendous amount of analytics that goes into this. And I'm with Leah. Performance is first, second, and third. Attitude is extremely important, but also we got to take a look at our coverage map in the business and where we have exposure from a pipeline standpoint, from a geographic standpoint, and also from a customer standpoint. But that all gets factored into the decision making.
Awesome. And with all of these tough questions, let's go into the lightning round, which is easier questions, and it's one-word answer.
I'm scared.
You'll hear the first question, and you guys are going to be like, "Oh God, all this hype for nothing." So the very first question, I'll go with Leah, and you're going to answer it after Peter, but you'll get a second to think about it. So, what is your favorite app on your phone?
Oh, Strava.
Peter? Your favorite app on the phone?
It used to be TripIt. I don't use it much now. I don't know. Great question. There's so many. My iTunes store.
Fair enough. I like dark skies. I always like to know what the weather is. So just going to call out mine.
Yeah, I don't leave the house anymore, so it really doesn't matter to me.
I know. I just like to dream like I can.
They just
next
got
question.
dark sky.
What is the last book that you read, Leah? What was the last book you read?
The Woman Who Smashed Code.
Peter?
I just finished The New Czar. It was a book about Putin that I found really fascinating.
Awesome. All right. What Netflix did you last binge on, Leah?
000. I think that's Netflix.
Or whatever streaming service. Doesn't have to be Netflix. Yeah. Peter?
I love The Last Dance though.
That's a good one too.
I would say Billions.
Okay. Second to last question. Leah, what's your favorite place to go on vacation?
Greece.
Peter?
Oh, Barcelona.
Oh, all right. And the very hardest question for last. What is the first thing you're going to do once shelter in place is over?
Go visit family.
Awesome. Peter?
I'm going to Barcelona.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. I appreciate you guys were willing to just take this on, this really hard lightning round. But anyways, in all seriousness, thank you guys both. We really appreciated it. I learned so much from today and just listening. Definitely, we welcome you guys to always be actively involved in our Slack, and we would love to have you guys back again, post COVID-19, and maybe talk a little bit about, what the new normal looks like based off of what we predicted today. So
yeah, sounds great.
Awesome. Thanks,
appreciate
guys.
Guys.
Great coffee.
Thank you
really
so much.
Appreciate it. Awesome.
Thank you.
Actually, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you, everyone. I am, Sam, can you pass me the host so I can turn on my video?
Yes, I can.
And everyone on the Zoom chat and webinar, we are going to announce the AirPods, which are extremely expensive these days. Okay. I'm not able to turn on my camera, Sam.
I just shared you as you're now the host. It says here.
Okay. Can everyone see me? Hello.
Yeah, there
Yes,
you go.
we can.
All right, I am going to share my screen. So, all right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, all right, so what I want to make sure is announce our next one. And thanks to Peter for introducing us to Teresa. She is going to be a panelist on our next event. Our co-founder, Eric Glick, is going to be leading that. He's a SE manager, senior manager at Slack, extremely smart guy, and he has some really tough questions for Joe, Marjorie, and Teresa. So we're going to have Okta, VMware, as well as Splunk. And what we are going to talk about is what is the role of chief of staff and how can you build and scale SE teams. So stay tuned. If you want to join that event, join our meetup, go to salesengineersny.com, sign up, and just be a part of our Slack. And we will look forward for June 4th, same time. And with that, introducing Sales Engineers of Boston. Boston is a great city. Definitely they have a better football team. Don't kill me. Or a baseball team. I don't know. but that's all they have.
Definitely not a baseball team. Definitely not a baseball team.
That's all they care about, Peter. They always talk about sports because otherwise it's a boring city. But anyway, we are very glad to have Boston folks. They have their first meetup coming up May 26th. Go to their website, salesengineersboston.com. You can join their Slack channel, cboss-boston, and hear what's going on in the Boston SE industry, what the environment looks like there, and they will be available for a Q&A. We have Nick, who is a manager at Box, Leon, who is a manager at SEs at Salesforce, and we have Pat and Praveen, who are SEs at Box and Dynatrace. So please, please be on the lookout for this event. Okay, so this is a fun time. We have 3 AirPods. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask Leah and Peter, what was the best question you guys thought that you answered?
Go ahead, Leah.
I thought I'm going to go with the first question, and we probably didn't even give it justice, was what are the biggest challenges in delivering a demo post-COVID? So opening question, first person, that brave person that asked.
So that was Hillel, if I'm not mistaken. Hillel, can you send us a Slack message? Right? All right. Okay, so we have Hillel. He has claimed the prize, and he's the winner. Hillel, you will receive AirPods
Congrats.
very soon. Thank you so much. Awesome. So the next one is we are going to do a wheel of fortune sort of deal here. So let me actually share my screen again. And this is fun. What we're gonna do is we have all the names of RSVP attendees, and the rules are that we're only gonna give out 1 AirPods per person, and they need to claim to win it. If they're not here in Slack or chat, they don't get it. And none of us founders can. So SENY, Boston, Toronto, we're not gonna be eligible. Okay. So let's spin the wheel, everyone. Should we? Can we hear
Let's go.
Here?
Let's go. Let's go.
All right. Let's do it.
Is that your phone?
Just trying to play music.
Is that your like sad way of background noise?
do we have Simran Ahuja? I'll let you guys let me know, Sam, from the chat.
Yeah, he's on. That's awesome.
She's on?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Simran, you're the winner of the RSVP list. So what I'm gonna do is now I'm going to have all these names cleared up, and we're gonna do people who were only in Slack. Okay. Congrats, Simran, for getting the winner here. So we're gonna do the same thing for Slack here. All right. So just to show you guys, this is all legit here. Let's see. Okay, I could not copy it. This is a demo.
Failed demo here. Failed demo right here. Live in front of 100 people. No pressure.
This is Slack's definitely Slack's issue right here. So I'm gonna blame Eric. Okay, there it is.
There you go.
So I was really trying to have some music going on in the background, but it's not gonna work. So let's give it a shot.
They're asking for you to sing, Akshat, during the waiting period.
All right, I will. Do we have Mallory? Can she claim the prize? Is Mallory there to claim the prize? Can someone?
I'm not seeing Mallory.
Okay.
Going once, twice. All right, try it again.
All right. We have Abhay Kumar. Is Abhay there?
Negative.
Wow. Okay.
And one more. Come on, you're about to strike out here.
This is the best demo I've ever had in my life. Leo. Come on, Leo. You got to be there.
Leo is there.
Leo,
Awesome.
it is.
Right.
Awesome.
Yay.
All right, guys. That is it from me. I really appreciate your time. Thank you, Sam, Peter. We loved it. And Leah, we learned so much from you guys. We are really appreciative of your time. And the attendees, we are here because of all of you. Thank you so much. SalesEngineersInvite.com. Join everyone. And guys, this will be on YouTube. Thank you so much.
Take care, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Be safe, everyone.
Bye. Bye, Leah. Take care.
Bye. Bye. Bye, Peter. Bye. Thank you, guys. It was
Bye,
great.
guys.